Factory podcast.
My name's Henry Raby.
And my name's Natalie Quatermass. And together we are
Vandal Factory.
That's right. If this is your first time listening, where have you been for the last 31 episodes?
Get on the Vandal Factory train. It's a factory and a train.
Yes, yeah, the trains go to the factory and then we make stuff like art and activism and podcasts. We put the world to rights, basically, through the factory that is Vandal.
Natalie is a theatre maker, workshop facilitator, all-round good egg, community activist. I'm a poet and do a little bit of the other stuff.
Admin. Largely admin-based.
Yeah, admin-based anarchism. And together we talk about arts and activism. And this is going to be a banging episode, isn't it, Natalie?
It certainly is. This is our last episode of 2024. We are currently recording on the 17th of December.
But don't worry, this isn't a Christmas special.
No, I don't think so. If you're listening in the future, I'm sure everything's fine in 2025.
Hello.
I'm sure it's great.
How many rainbows are there?
Loads. And no, don't worry about it. It's not one of those like weird things where I just can't stand hearing anything to do with Christmas like on January the 2nd. I'm done. I'm out. There will be hyacinths in my house and nothing else.
But don't think that Natalie's an anti-Christmas person.
Hell no. But
No.
just December, comes in December the 1st
Yeah.
and intensifies, and then, New Year's, and then we're done.
It's done.
And then we're looking forward to spring.
Tell you what I'm looking forward to this episode.
Yeah, all right, mate.
What have we
We're
got?
allowed to do some pre-show chat, It can't all just be production. Go on then, fine. Tell everyone what's coming up on this episode.
We've got an interview with rapper and activist B. Dolan.
Who's that?
He's from America. From Rhode Island.
Oh, man.
Rhode Island.
It was a real pleasure. And this amazing. B. Dolan is a big deal to get on our little podcast. It's so cool.
Yeah.
If you don't know B. Dolan's work, check it out right now, even if you're not the biggest hip hop fan. The lyricism, the performance, the the beats, it's just amazing. It's amazing artist.
His live show, where we interviewed him when he was performing a live gig, was
Fulford Arms in York.
Big up. He held us. He's held the audience.
Held us. Podcasters.
As podcasters.
We were just little unky bee.
And he rocked us to sleep. He spat some lyrics at us.
I thought these Vandal Factory kids would be more
vandalous.
Vandalous. Here they are, just weeping and crying, in the fetal position. Hold us, unky bee. No, he's great. And we had a wonderful chat with him. Yeah, he's got amazing stagecraft too.
And we also chatted to artistic director of Derby Theatre, Sarah Brigham.
Whoa!
The Brigster.
Indeed. Now, you know Sarah from back in day.
She was my youth theatre director when I lived in York.
When you were... Can you imagine, folks? Henry used to be a shy little nerdy... poetry-loving child.
I used to sit in the corner and read Friedrich Nietzsche.
Yeah, before you had your mobile phone to stare at, you just had books to read.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Just sitting in the back corner reading Orwell and Kafka.
Yeah.
I was happy then.
Yeah.
Now I just go on Kafka's Wikipedia page.
Before you'd discovered other people.
Yeah. These guys are here. I guess we better do some youth theatre stuff then.
I suppose.
So Sarah talks to us about her practice as a director, talking about shows she directed, Welfare, but also about opening buildings, getting people in, getting the community in as part of her role as a gatekeeper, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. The Derby Theatre, if you don't know, is a really interesting example of like a major regional theatre.
It's a learning building.
It's a learning building. What does that mean?
It's connected to the university, so part of its remit is to educate, not only working with the students and give them a space, but at its core, at its vision, is that it works with community to upskill and work with artists to open those doors. So it isn't just a receiving house or a building that produces a piece of work and you go and see it and you clap and walk away. At its core, it is about learning.
And what I was going to say was it's also in a shopping precinct. So in that way, I don't know when it was built. It feels like an 80s, 90s thing. Is that when it's built?
Feels around the turn of the beginning of the cultural industry.
So just what a perfect idea when to talk, like, where do people go in your city? They go to our massive shopping precinct every Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's where we're going to build our theatre, and it's going to be embedded. So you go do your Saturday afternoon and you check out a matinee, and it's part of people's day-to-day lives, as opposed to being on the outside of something and being something that, you know, harks back to a different time. It's like in the centre of contemporary people's lives.
Absolutely. We've also got a contribution to our Freelance Feelings Factory.
Freelance Feeling Factory, oh yeah.
Where we talk to a freelancer working in the arts and cultural sector about what's the vibe?
What's your vibe?
What are you up to? Me and Natalie have provocations and poetry and conversations and lots of meaty stuff. So stick around. If you're a B. Dolan fan, listen to the Sarah interview. If you're a Sarah fan, listen to the B. Dolan interview.
Yeah, and please always like and subscribe and pass us on to your pals. We are a totally DIY podcast, so we only have, like, our marketing strategy is Henry making memes in his bedroom, and also, you know, I have a Vandal Factory patch on a denim jacket, and that's it. Yeah. So if you can send this to a friend who you think would enjoy it and say, hey, check it out, then it means so much to us. And thank you for listening.
So we are currently recording at Chapel FM Arts Centre in East Leeds.
Big up.
We just want to give a shout out that they give us the space free.
Yeah.
Which is very cool of them. So we always start an episode by saying, hey, how's your hope? And how's your anger?
Indeed. Hope and anger are themes that come up all the time in all these interesting conversations that we have with people. And we see them as two fuels that keep the fires of art and activism going. Are you asking me how my hope and how my anger is?
Yeah, go on.
Are you doing that?
I can
you
ask
weren't
me.
really.
Shall we flip a coin?
No, I always ask you, and then mine's a little side note on the end. So I'm going to tell you.
A footnote. Go on.
It's all right, yeah. It's fine.
Both in it. Yeah, both all right. Yeah.
Fine. I was thinking about how actually I'm too tired. This is also a running theme. People all know I'm too tired to feel angry. And there's just a sort of trudging along, especially at this time of year. We're like counting down the days to Christmas. But what worries me is that we are over a year into the genocide in Gaza. Trump has been elected for the second time. And these things, as well, you know, I could keep listing the atrocities that are going on around the world. And yet it's so easy to stop feeling angry and for them to become blasé.
The word genocide meant a huge amount. I mean, it still does, but it was powerful. It
had a kind of bite in it. Like, it was almost difficult to say because it was such a, you know, the enormity of what that meant to use that word. It really held the huge significance, quite rightly. And now a year later you think, well, I use this word every other day now, in the correct context, of course, and all the rest of it, but we're just having to explain, like, these atrocities and talk about them and hear about them over and over and over again. And
when a number of dead hits, there's certain landmarks it hits, right? It hits 500 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, but now... And
then at what point where you just go, what? Like, when do numbers just... people start becoming numbers? And that's really dangerous to, like, check that and check... I think art, one of the things that storytellers do is make those numbers into stories and individual kind of individual stories or family stories that then you can sort of wrap your head around a personal experience and amplify that number up and go, blimey neck, if it's really bad and I can empathise with this one person's experience or like a small community's experience, then imagine how awful it would be if I had to times this feeling by thousands and thousands. Like, you can have an emotional attachment to that, but yeah, the anger still comes. Like, it's still like, it comes in sparks and stuff, and I find it incredibly useful.
I think that for me, the amount of people who are still angry gives me hope. So the people who are organising, not just around Palestine, but also about trans rights, who obviously Trump and this current Labour government are coming after, people going after refugees, the sort of bubbling away of racism and transphobia and homophobia in our culture, but also from the government. The people who are opposing that, who are organising against you, are connecting up, they give me hope. And the last time we recorded an episode was months ago, and since then I have gone to so many sound events and venues and talked to people, and I'm always reminded people aren't alone. They are organising. They do care about people. Absolutely. So that does give me hope.
I think I don't know. We are obviously in a various communities that are active and creative and put action out in the world, but it does feel like those communities and those spaces are ramping up, like they're not going anywhere, and I feel like there's more and more people where action has become just a part of their life in a way that it wasn't necessarily in the last kind of 5 years. Say they're like, oh, being active and really turned on about all these mega serious issues this is going to be core to me. So that's something that's massively hopeful. Being engaged is, I think, on the up.
I want to hit 2025 hard. I don't know what that looks like.
You're going to punch it in the face.
I'm going to give it a
hit
big
it
old
hard.
Shin
Can
it.
I make an alternative suggestion? Do you hit it
I'm going to caress
gently?
it. I'm going to caress
Just
2025.
Just go up to give it little kisses. Let's go, hello 2025.
It's okay. Let's be kind this year. Let's be nice.
Just why do you have to hit everything hard? You've been working really hard. And just chill out. We should probably tell people that we've moved in together.
Yeah. So
if you note a significant increase in the amount of bickering that's going on, me and Henry have gone from living next door to each other and spending quite a lot of time together to living together and spending even more time together.
Well, just to say up front, me and Natalie aren't a couple. We have to explain
Henry
this to
likes
people.
to establish that quite early on. I'm blasé about it, to be honest.
Natalie is my podcast wife, and we only ever talk to each other on the podcast, don't we?
He insists in the morning I come down and you immediately get your microphone out, don't you? Say, do you want a cup of tea?
Yeah. How do you feel about cups of tea? When's the first time you had a cup of tea?
Shut up, Henry. Come on, let's crack on. Let's hear some B. Dolan stuff.
Yeah, so this was recorded, as we said, at Fulford Arms in York. It was a Say Out gig. Say Out is the other venture I do outside of Vandal Factory. It's a poetry collective. We put on gigs, spoken word stuff. And we interviewed B. Dolan. He talks about all his vibe, but interspersed in the interview is music from the show he played in York, where me and Natalie were right down at the front. Having a little boogie. Everyone else was a little bit static of we are a York audience on a Tuesday night.
We are going to pay attention politely.
Yeah. But
that was nice. They were enjoying themselves.
Take it away, Unky B.
How we doing, York? What's going on? My name is B. Dolan. I represent Providence, Rhode Island. I might become a political refugee tonight. It's bonfire night. It's election night. I came to start a fire. I heard this was the place. So let me introduce myself if you don't know who I am. I've been touring since about 2005. During the pandemic, I realized that for 3 to 5 years, I've had collapsed vertebrae in my neck, pinching my spinal cord. Got an emergency spinal surgery. I'm titanium from second vertebrae to the middle of my back. Last year, I returned to the road, did a little bit of touring. This year is my farewell tour. This is my last show in England, actually. Let's make sure it bangs loud out there. Hey, do me a favor, big guys, if you're standing in front of a small person, look behind you and let them stand in front of you. That's what I like to do at the beginning. Don't block nobody's view, you tall motherfuckers. I know. I'm a tall motherfucker that can't turn my neck. I gotta really look around. Let's get into it. Sound good. Step ahead, step behind. Only rapper two-stepping with the metal spine. Even the decline, still ahead of my time. Evil Knievel in his prime, how's he even alive? Damn, I dare you devils adhere to the schedule. I ran like hell for years at this level. Whole family on my back, what I tell you. Even when the vertebrae cracked, I never fell through. Never said I was invincible. Body moving, body broken from the neck down. Guess I was standing on my
So, hello.
Hello.
Me and Natalie are here in the dressing room of the Fulford Arms, or the Fully. You've not been here for many, many years.
I've not been here PP.
Whoa.
Pre-pandemic, I've not been back. And it feels good. It feels like coming home. It's lovely.
Yeah, well, not only
It's
is
one of my favourite venues. It's one of your favourite venues as well.
it's still got the punky edge that it's a bit gnarled, but it's like very organised and on it. I like it.
It's like you down to a T. It's like if you were a building. or a
Yeah, if I was a
venue.
building, it's still a bit smelly, but but it's an actual venue that's working. And the reason we're here is, of course, we are interviewing the hip hop activist B. Dolan, who is to my right. Yeah.
How's it going?
All right, Mr. Dolan. We call you B.
Call me whatever you want.
No.
Call me Uncle B.
Ah.
I get called Auntie Natty. That's why I'm like...
Yeah.
Put respect on Auntie Natty's name.
Okay. So, B, you are touring The Wound Is Not the Body, your latest album. Can you tell the listeners, like, the vibe of the album, what the album represents to you? Because I know there's a lot going on in that record.
Basically, for 3 to 5 years before the pandemic happened, I had been touring with collapsed vertebrae in my neck and didn't know it. And the only symptom was numbness in 3 fingers on my left hand. And because of lockdown, I stopped going to physio, and my wife was kind of asking me as I was homeschooling our nephew and being like, this is weird with your back not getting better. Like, you should get an MRI. And when I did, they were like, you need emergency surgery. Like, stop taking all medicine. And fused me with a titanium rod and screws from like my second vertebrae to the middle of my back. So that was then like 6 weeks recovery time. 2 years for the nerves to regenerate, like learn to walk again, all that stuff.
I'm the traveler, the traveler, the traveler, the brand ambassador. Yeah, I'm the traveler, the traveler, trying to pick a day to make my way about the maze.
And so during that time, I didn't have access to my studio or the ability to record or perform. And I started, the other thing I do is I write screenplays every once in a while, and I've had a couple made. And I was kind of doing a deep dive on screenplay writing, and I got very into structure and read like a big course of books that I put together for myself and nerded out on the math of it all, kind of. Yeah, and then wrote a couple screenplays, but then once I had built a studio in the backyard, I got out there and started making songs again, and I started applying that like math thing to my songwriting, and that was like a big, you know, so I just had time that I had never had before. We'd been on this cycle of like getting in advance to make the next album, making the next album in the time between touring the last album, and being very locked into this like live music cycle of making the record, then going to sell the record. And for the first time, when I just had no impending tour, it was the closest I've gotten to like my genesis as a writer of just being like, how good can I make this? Like how, and I got to really just like make the thing, focus on the creation part of it. And I did like nerd out on math. I developed like a whole different approach when I start writing songs. It kind of changed and made things easy where they used to be difficult, where I used to just have a sense that something was wrong. Now I was able to like find and diagnose why it felt wrong, as opposed to just like banging my head against the wall. So I got very into my process.
York, make some fucking noise. Let's do this shit on a Tuesday. I know exactly what you want. Here you go. Even after you burn the last book from out the library, The future is non-binary. Behind every word, another day is passed. Danger lays in the grass, and fortune favors the sociopath. Still on his past, still known to rock a mask.
You've been on tour for the past couple of weeks in the UK on the hitting across England, Scotland coming up. How's this tour been for you? Revisiting some old places, some old friends. Yeah, what's been the vibe? What's been the highlights?
It's been great. It's been emotional. It's like I've kind of been on tour all year. I toured in the U.S. first, and I had toured last August as I was starting to write and bring this material out and finish it. And touring the U.K. is great. It's not that physically impactful on me. It's like a couple hours drive between cities. It's pretty manageable, and the crowds out here have always been good. We've always been able to like hire people to carry boxes and stuff since like 2018 or 17, which is good physically for me. The States is more of an ordeal because the States are huge. And so like in July, I was on tour on the West Coast, like in a Nissan Altima, just like dragging a suitcase city to city. And yeah, so the realization came when I came back and we got another MRI and they kind of looked at things. And I had some tough conversations with like doctors and physios who were just basically like, if you keep trying to tour at this level for the next 5 years, you're going to lose serious function in your body, like to the risk of like paralysis, wheelchair type stuff. So once I got that news and had the conversation with like, you need to prioritize your health and like strengthening all that stuff. And tour really doesn't make that possible. Like it interrupts your life for months and months at a time. It doesn't make it easy to set up a steady strengthening yoga routine. And so just that realization, I, kind of woke up at a certain one of the days and was just like, okay, guys, like this is the farewell tour. And once we made that announcement, tickets started selling like crazy. To which I'm like, oh, you heard me all these years. Oh, you were seeing it, but it is what it is. I understand.
And how about you though? That's the impact it's had on your crowd. Are you having moments where you can soak it all in? Are you knackered and you just want to go home?
Yeah, I was nervous when I came out. I was like, is this going to be like being at my own funeral, for 14 days? And there are people who just come up to me and be like, it's so sad that you're leaving. And I'm like, I'm not dying. My life will continue beyond this.
Never sense the common thread, never learned to slow it down, never seem to calm your head. Now you need a solid friend to talk to till the quakes are over. But I am not immortal, I'm just breaking down slower.
Long ago,
the rock cried out. The rock cried out. I can't hide you.
Yeah, and one-offs are still possible. Like I said, it's just touring at this rate. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, I kind of feel like pretty satisfied, to be honest. Like at this point, I've been touring a long time. I've been a lot of places. I've received like all the validation I need from live music, and I've had incredible experiences and rocked in front of 3,000 Greek anarchists with no security, doing a show of force against fascists, and rocked in front of 60,000 people and freestyled and like.
Whoa, you're gonna have to tell that story.
Yeah.
I mean, you've just hit our demographic.
You talking about the Greek Antifa? That one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was where I learned about Antifa. That was I'll be bad at placing the year, but I think maybe year 2014, 13. I had been touring a lot, and I had been paying attention to the rise in like right-wing nationalism globally. And Greece was the first place that I saw it happen, was after the bailout and what happened with Greece. In the Euro, I think there was just like incredible poverty there, and then they had some Nazis get elected to the parliament.
It was a Golden Dawn party.
Yes,
I think.
yeah. And so I think a year later, I was touring in Europe, and they got in touch and flew me to Athens and picked me up, and we're just like, and in the ride there, they're kind of explaining the deal, and they're like, this political rapper got killed last year, and so we've started to do like political rap concerts in the city as like a show of force against these fascists. And so they're kind of driving me there, and I'm like, oh, cool, all right. And they're like block to block showing me where like there's swastikas on one block, and the next block is anti-fascist, and it's like a graffiti war happening down in the city for turf. And So, yeah, we get out there. There's footage on YouTube too, and not a security guard in sight. All anarchists, all anti-fascist. Walk me in past a giant like row of tables where all of these books have been translated into Greek, and I'm picking up books about like American hip hop culture and how it was connected to like revolutionary thought, like about Public Enemy and shit, translated into Greek. Into Greek, they're like selling homemade T-shirts, posters. Got like the tent to take care of people. Got the tent for the artists to chill in, and they were so hype that I'm doing Film the Police. And I'm just seeing like canisters go off in the crowd.
They can't arrest the whole community because the streets block. These cops occupying blocks, harassing the homeless with batons and pulling glocks. Stop law for protests and let off shots. Abuse prostitutes and misuse power they got in memory of the victims who were never forgot. You better exercise your right to shed light in the dark. There is an army on the march. It doesn't want you to watch. You got a weapon in your pocket, whether you know it or not. We the people are the only real media we got. Let's protect one another from the fucking goon squad. Fascism's come to the UK. Hey yo, York, I got something to say. You go film the police. Film the police. At the very least, film the police. You better film the police. And you might have to fight the police. That's right, might have to fight the police. From the protests to the streets, no justice, no peace.
That's the sound of the police.
Say what?
That's the sound of the beast.
Say what?
Speaking of fascists, I think it would be untoward not to mention that we are recording on the 5th of November. So how does America celebrate Bonfire Night?
We're about to find out.
We're all asking.
Yeah, about to find out. And I mean, it ties in easily. Like from Greece, then I watched like the right-wing march in some Nordic countries, I believe were next. And then I remember UKIP in the UK when I came out here. And then Boris Johnson. And so by the time Trump ran the first time, everyone in America was like, oh, no way. Are you kidding? And I was like, way. This could happen. Like, this is the way it's been going around the world. And even then was conspiracy-minded enough to be like, this isn't a coincidence. Like, that all these countries are doing the same rightward thing. And as it turns out, like now we know like Cambridge Analytica and Steve Bannon, who just like left our country and came to Europe to do the same shit out here. It is certainly like and was like backed by the global 1% that like these clowns would fucking take over each of these countries and run amok. And they did. And we're still not rid of Trump. And also, the left-wing alternative is American left wing, which is center right anywhere else in the world. So I personally don't invest too much in national elections. I mean, I'm aware of how things will be affected that will massively impact people's lives. Luckily, I don't live in a swing state. I live in a state that goes blue all the time. But I haven't told anyone to vote for Kamala Harris, and I don't intend to because of the genocide in Palestine and my belief that it's an issue that can't be ignored, can't be overlooked, ties together all other issues. And for me, my orientation really doesn't change anymore. Like, thanks to bell hooks, I stay pretty focused on capitalist, imperialist, white supremacist patriarchy. That's the enemy. That's who I'm against all the time. So I don't have any illusion that I can go vote that out. That gets in every time.
I'm on the side of poor people getting organized. I'm on the side of choice where it is in short supply. I'm on the side of those the system doesn't authorize. LGBTQIA, moving fewer in the way of justice and equality. Egypt to Wisconsin when they march against the policy. If you bringing down a king, I'm on your side probably. Kids that give me shit for this, it really doesn't bother me. They were not around when we were wrestling with poverty. So I follow none, ask no one to follow me. Use your own mind, use your heart, use your anger. Check yourself because apathy is a cancer, and let your action be the answer. You let your action be the answer. We let our actions be the answer. England, put your fucking hands up one time and say which side are you on? Come on.
I'm supposed to be on the left with everyone who's praying that Trump doesn't get in. But I also know that if Trump gets in, everyone on the left will be completely energized for the next 4 years. They will be protesting in the street. They will be going so hard because they will turn on the TV every day and know that the devil is in the White House. But if we vote the other way, if we narrowly by 1% vote the other way, then all those people are just like, cool, back to sleep I go, back to my consumerist habits, back to not giving a shit until the next election when there's a scary Republican or right-wing figure who's going to end democracy and shit. It's like, what democracy are we saving? Like, if that's what we're doing.
Last question is there a track that you want us to play on the podcast, someone you want to shout out to, or something that's been buzzing around your head on this tour?
Well, I miss Sinead O'Connor real bad. Yeah, let's end with Black Boys on Mopeds.
Which references Thatcher. Boo.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Unky B.
Yeah, thank you, B.
Margaret Thatcher on TV, shocked by the deaths that took place in Beijing. It seems strange that she should be offended. The same orders are given by her. I've said this before now. You said I was childish and you'll say it now. Remember what I told you. If they hated me, they will hate you. England's not the mythical land of Madame George and roses. It's the home of police who kill black boys on mopeds. And I love my boy, and that's why I'm leaving. I don't want him to be aware that there's any such thing as grieving. Young mother down at Smithfield, 5 a.m. looking for food for her kids. In her arms she holds 3 cold babies, and the first word that they learned was please. These are dangerous days. To say what you feel is to dig your own grave. Remember what I told you. If you were of the world, they would love you. England's not the mythical land of Madame George and roses. It's the home of police who kill black boys on mopeds. And I love my boy, and that's why I'm leaving. I don't want him to be aware that there's any such thing as grieving.
That was Black Boys on Mopeds by Sinead O'Connor. Now, Sinead is obviously what was, tragically she's not with us anymore, but an incredible performer and activist. But if you'd have listed 100 musicians that B. Dolan would have chosen from, I did not expect the fantastic Sinead O'Connor. I thought we'd have some like raucous hip hop music, but there we go. Fair play, Unky B.
Since you've been gone, I can do whatever I want. Oh, yeah.
The spirit of Sinead is with us here
Ain't
in the
nothing.
studio.
Oh, you know that everyone listening to this, but it's right. Don't stop the podcast. Keep
No.
on listening to the podcast.
Yes.
But immediately after the podcast, we should all go and listen to Sinead O'Connor. I can't wait to listen to Sinead O'Connor. I'm so excited.
Well, we're having tea tonight in the house.
Yeah. I can do whatever I want.
If you want to listen to a full, unedited audio of Natalie singing Sinead O'Connor hits, if you want to listen to...
Ain't nothing,
It's what the people
ain't
want!
nothing can take away from you.
If you want to listen to...
Nothing confess. You can go on.
If you want to listen to...
Confess to.
She's also crying like Sinead does in the music video.
Come
There's
on,
tears
stop
everywhere.
getting so distracted.
A full unedited interview with B. Dolan will be out shortly. Usually that's a slightly clipped
Turn
edited.
around every now and then. I get a little bit lonely, and you're never coming round.
So subscribe.
Turn around.
Is that Sinead O'Connor?
Is it?
I don't.
Oh, is it someone else?
And I need you now tonight.
Tonight.
Hello everyone, Henry here, just dropping in to say that we realised afterwards Natalie was singing Total Eclipse of the Heart by Bonnie Tyler. As much as Sinead O'Connor was a fierce fighter against oppression for people all over the world, Bonnie Tyler also seems like a pretty decent egg. So in that spirit, I've added Total Eclipse of the Heart to the Vandal Factory playlist on Spotify for all your listening pleasure. Back to the podcast.
Anyway, what are we here to talk about?
So I just wanted to say B. Dolan's lyrics from Which Side Are You On, which is his absolute
fine.
banger. But he says, use your own mind, use your heart and your anger, check yourself because apathy is a cancer and let your action be the answer.
Yes, please. Excellent. And if you would like to listen to Sinead O'Connor they have a point, or any other songs that we play on the Vandal Factory podcast, we have a Spotify playlist. So you can go and listen to just the bangers without us chatting.
Finally. Yes.
Which some people might prefer.
Our listenership is going to plummet, but our likes on our playlist is going to do the opposite, plummet. Summit.
All right.
Here's Summit. It's time for Nat's Provocation Stations.
Choo-choo.
The chat train is pulling into Nat's provocation station.
Hello, this is Nat's Provocation Station, and for today's provocation, I thought I'd bring to your attention the delightful work of Leeds Palestinian Film Festival. And
Big up!
Yes, and if you
Yes.
don't know, they've just finished their 10th anniversary festival, which is an amazing achievement, and every year they do such a good group. They're such a good job as a group of volunteer. They're a committee of directors who do an amazing job of getting Palestinian artists, films, panels, discussions, etc., into all sorts of different venues in and around Leeds and the surrounding areas, and they do. I think because film is such an accessible art form, and because they use so many different types of venues, like not just arts venues, I think they do a really good job of reaching not just the usual crowd, which is awesome to see. So often people's kind of first point of contact, or certainly engaging with people who are curious and want to learn a bit more about Palestine, they're really excellent at getting hold of those people, which is awesome to see. And so I felt very lucky when they invited me to do something. They wanted to do something for children or for families, and do a few different things to make it a bit special for this 10th anniversary workshop, this 10th anniversary festival. So they knew me and knew that I did lots of work with families and communities, knew that I'd been to Palestine and worked with lots of Palestinians in Leeds and and in Palestine and everywhere in between. And so could you think of something to do? So I said, yeah. And we had a lovely time, didn't we? With our various friends from the Leeds Palestinian protests, Shaymar and Fozia, who've also been on this podcast several times.
Yeah, they pop up.
They've been on various episodes talking about Palestine. And so we took the book that's called These Olive Trees by Aya Ghanameh, and she's a New York-based Palestinian, and it's a beautifully illustrated story of a young Palestinian girl who is experiencing the Nakba, but it's told through her eyes and through the eyes of the olive groves that her families have tended to, and having to leave and her not really understanding why, and then moving on again and moving somewhere else. And so this, I always find with story, what it is such a gift to us is that we can talk about huge global complex issues and put it into the world of a child and experience it through their lens. And that's the child that's in the story, but also the children that are within the workshop. And there is something called story knowing, which my PhD supervisors, Kath Heinemeyer and Matthew Reason, they talk about a kind of intelligence, a kind of knowledge that is story knowing. And so there is something that when we are embodied within story, there's a kind of knowledge that is almost inherent to us. So there's a kind of knowledge that children can experience when we're dealing with complex things in our lives, but if it's told to us through a story. And so that's what I tried to do with this workshop. And I think it's really important for families to have spaces where they can come and be creative alongside their kids and give them a space where they can sit side by side and they might be doing a craft activity and they're both joining in on that. And when you're sort of providing a little space for them to be able to have a discussion about things, or maybe the child has some questions. And we know that so many young people are engaged on the genocide that's happening in Gaza and the West Bank. And I'm really worried about what kind of images they will be exposing themselves to or are being exposed to, even if the parents have like a really tight clamp on phones and internet at home. Like, you know, they're gonna get hold of stuff at school. It's worse to go through it, but we do also need to be thinking about the young people that are witnessing it. So what the workshop was about was celebrating Palestinian culture. So we've got Palestinians in the room who can then jump in and say, this is what this embroidery means, and this is what this symbolism means. And I remember cooking makluba with my grandmother, and now I do it with this. And so it becomes about telling this story, but then they're all chipping in with details, and we're all telling the story together. And there's lots of other people there in the room of all different ages who can it becomes about a celebration of culture. So you're inviting a space where story and celebration of culture is can occur. And
some very young ages in that room as well.
Oh, they were so little, yeah. I really
around.
wasn't. I mean, you get used to, in my day and age, like in doing this for a while, I'm often in circumstances where the participants that I was expecting are not the participants that have turned up. But I mean, when you say family workshop, why wouldn't you bring a 4-year-old or 3-year-old or an 18-month-year-old along? But yeah, I didn't expect that to be quite like the majority of the kids that were there were that age. But it was really good fun, and it was a delight to be a part of.
Are we going to hear some of those?
Yeah, we
words?
can drop in some audio here. Why not?
I am an olive tree. My roots are strong, confident and brave. My fruits are unique, juicy and sweet. I wish you good luck for your journey.
I am an olive tree. My roots are brown, strong and ancestral. They have been here for many years. I have been looked after and loved by the people who live here.
I am an olive tree. My roots are strong and deep. My fruit is beautiful. It is for all.
An olive tree. My bark is strong and my fruits comes every year.
I'm an olive tree. My bark is brilliant in the sunshine and my leaves shade everyone.
Rain starts coming. And what happens to seeds when they get rain on them?
I'm going to olive tree.
Yeah, we're going to grow into olive trees. So we're
I am the olive tree. I have to survive on my own. My roots are strong. They will never break.
I am an olive tree.
I am an olive tree.
My roots are in the summer.
My roots are in the summer.
My olive roots are of great patience.
Trees are thin and long. To the person who planted me, I will never forget you. I will wait for you always.
The second event that I got to be involved was even more nerve-wracking because I was asked to compare the closing event, which was a little bit more serious than a children's family workshop, because it was at the Civic Hall in Leeds City Centre, and the Lord Mayor in their banqueting hall, and the Lord Mayor gave an address, which felt like pretty significant for, I think that, again, the Leeds Palestinian Film Festival directors did such a good job to get that space, and for this to be like in the heart of our civic centre of our city, to be recognised, and that our mayor is going to give an address and say, of course she's focusing on like the achievement of doing a film festival for 10 years, but it's undeniable why that festival is important, and the importance of celebrating different cultures and tolerance and being a melting pot of a city. And she spoke about all those things. So that felt really significant. And then we had an amazing panel of Palestinian artists.
Gosh, Natalie, I'd love to be able to listen to this discussion in the panel.
Well, lucky for you, Henry, we recorded it, didn't we?
We did.
So we had a brilliant discussion, and various short films and some beautiful oud playing, and we're going to put this all out for you in an extra special podcast, so you can come and listen to it, and we're clipping out all the bits where I embarrassed myself, and I was so nervous of like addressing the Lord Mayor wrong that I'd written it. Yeah, exactly.
How are you doing?
That's exactly what I was going to do. So I typed it out correctly on my notes, and then someone told me what the correct way of saying it is, and I'd written it down correctly, but I wrote it down in my handwriting above my typed out notes, the same thing written out twice, and so when I came to read it out, I just said it twice.
Your mayorship.
I just got it. I got it right.
So
twice.
Good. You had to say it twice.
Yeah, but it went all right, didn't it?
It was great. It was amazing. And you listeners will be able to tell Natalie it was amazing because you'll listen to it. It's called Culture as Resistance.
Indeed, yeah. So we'll set that out as a separate factory floor cut or bonus episode. Yeah, that's my provocation. Keep doing stuff. Culture as resistance. Anyway, so that's a little bit of what I've been up to in the last couple of weeks. But I think it's time that we hear what you've been up to, don't you, Henry?
Yes, it's time for me to do my own thing.
Wait, Henry, you said something interesting before. For the first time ever.
Whoa!
Oh, my goodness.
He's doing his own thing.
So this is the part of the show where I read a poem. In fact, I'm not going to read the poem. I'm going to play you a poem that I recorded at an event. The poem is called Nightmare. I wrote it in about 2018. It's about the hostile environment, where the Tory government at the time were like going, nope, let's round everybody up that we think shouldn't be here. Let's create a really, as Theresa May literally said, a really hostile environment and uncomfortable, fear-driven policies to get people that we don't want to be here shipped out, which obviously led to the hideous Windrush scandal. And unfortunately, the Labour Party are just continuing that, and they said they'll just do it more efficient of dealing with people. And this phrase has crept in a lot more, I've noticed, in just local Facebook groups, which are obviously the dirge of our society, where this phrase illegals are in our hotels.
That's so awful.
So dehumanising, so hideous. And I'm really proud to record here, as we say, at Chapel FM Arts Centre, where they do open the doors to people in the refugee system and the asylum system to cook food and be part of this community and come engage in arts and creative and cultural things here at the Arts Centre. So the event I went to and I read this poem, Nightmare, was at the Holbeck Working Men's Club. And it was a gig commemorating the Battle of Holbeck Moor, which was in 1936. There was a little thing going on in 1936 called fascism. Across the pond in Europe, the fascists had taken hold in Germany, in Italy, in Spain, and the black shirts, the British Union of Fascists, were trying to do the same tactics of whipping up division, whipping up hatred, of recruiting. So they would march to working class areas and they would hold these rallies. But the people of Holbeck, which is in Leeds, they said, no way, we're not having you here. And they fought back, and they literally on the moor fought back the fascists and said, you're not welcome here. You shall not pass. There was an unveiling of a plaque this year which commemorated the Battle of Holbeck Moor, and this poem Nightmare was recorded at the gig. So thank you so much to Sarah Autumn for asking me to perform at this event commemorating the fight against fascism.
Last night I dreamed Louise Michel was standing next to me. She raised aloft a flag and shouted, Vive la liberté! I wanted to stand and fight beside her, but she was stood on the other side of a border. I guess that when I wake up, I should go to work as long as what I do doesn't cause you hurt. Now, some people get jobs putting people into vans, some people get jobs burning down the Calais camps, and some people get jobs abusing in detention centres. But I hope the human race can do so much better. I know the human race can do so much better. Or, eat your dreams, spit out the bones, hide inside your private homes, give your health to the nightmare. At least you are a citizen of somewhere. Salaries and sleepwalking. What's that language you're talking? All these years, and what's the show? Eat your dreams, spit out the bones. If you don't want dreams, you set up for nightmares. Or take a life and make it harder. Build a wall and make it higher. It's just another 9 to 5. You do what you do to survive. Green and pleasant gangrene cliffs. Struggling for that extra pay slip. UK border agencies, you're just doing your job. Red waters at the borders. And if you don't want dreams, you set up for nightmares. And last night I dreamed I was splashing with the rest of humanity by a great wide sea. I wanted to reach out a hand to touch, but when I woke up, there was a body on the beach.
So speaking of poetry, it's time to hear a poet in our Freelance Feelings Factory feature.
Freelance Feeling Factory. Ooh, yeah. I think we've had enough of me singing in today's episode, haven't we?
No, there'll be a lot more opportunities, don't worry, Natalie.
We said it wasn't going to be festive, but with these bells.
The festive Freelance Feelings Factory feature.
Oh, dear.
Oh, crikey.
With Jemima Foxtrot.
Yes.
What a good name.
Who sings her poetry. It's very beautiful. What an amazing performer. So in this feature, we talk to freelancers, the good and the bad and the ugly of freelancing. And we
talk to bad freelancers. We talk to people who are just like rubbish at it. Just like, I've been sat on the sofa not doing anything.
Build a website.
Yeah, expecting. I do need to build a website.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, if anyone wants to build me a website in 2025, that'd be great. Get in touch. Thanks. Anyway, here's Jemima.
Hello, my name is Jemima Foxtrot. I am a writer, a performer, and a theatre maker. I love that my time is my own. I love that it's always different. I feel like my dad always says that your life lasts longer if you do lots of different things because time goes slower. And I love that. Like, I love that I haven't just been working in the same job for a number of years, and that I get to do different things all the time. Yeah.
Has there been a highlight of something that you've done freelance that you think, I probably couldn't have done this if I was working a salaried job for an arts organisation?
Yeah, I mean, all theatre, I think, because sometimes people say to me, you should, when I am struggling for money, you should get a part-time job. But when I work on a theatre project specifically, I tend to work really intensely over sometimes a short period of time, 3 weeks. And if I had a part-time job. I mean, I don't know how I would do that. I'd have to take those days off as holiday, and I don't want to spend my holiday working. So yeah, I mean, this year that's just gone, I made a show, Pleasure Incorporated, in Berlin, and just as I said, we worked on that very intensely for 3 weeks, and I wasn't able to do anything else during that time, and as a result, we had a good show that we were happy with. Yeah.
How is freelancing in Berlin different to good old Blighty?
It's a real mixed bag, actually, because in some ways, I think in Germany they are a lot more supportive of the arts, but it's quite difficult to be a freelancer there because you have to pay your health insurance, and basically health insurance is quite expensive. I mean, the health system is quite good, but health insurance is expensive. And usually if you had an employer, they would pay at least half of that for you. And if you're freelance, you basically have to pay it all yourself. However, if you're a freelance artist, you can be in this thing called the Künstlersozialkasse, which is like an artist's social club. So they sort of act like an employer, and they make it so that if you are an artist and you can prove that you make most of your money from art, then you get... you basically get half price health insurance than if you were a freelancer in another field. So, yeah, there are those sort of extra costs, but actually I can't really imagine there being something like that in the UK where they say, you know, we support artists, we know that the way that most artists operate is on a freelance basis, and therefore we're going to support them with this organisation. I mean, I find that really cool.
What are the barriers, the challenges? What needs to change to support freelancers?
Well, I'm always skint. I'm sure that's something you hear a lot from people. And I think even simple things as like just people realising that everything's gone up, and therefore, you know, maybe my rates should go up too. And I that's something I've actually got a bit better at recently, being like, wait a second, if I was doing this work for you for 150 quid 4 years ago, why am I still doing it for 150 quid now? Because everything else in my life has gone up. And so I'm getting a bit better at asking for more money, because if you don't ask, you don't get. But I think people need to be quite aware of that, because some people say yes, some people say no, and I understand, like, various organisations' hands are tied, you know, they haven't got more money. People maybe, you know, sadly at the moment, audiences and readers are willing to spend less money on art than they used to be, because everybody is struggling in this economy. So I understand it's difficult. There's not enough money around, basically. And in Berlin, actually, you know, one of the reasons I moved there is because they have such great arts funding, so much more than we have here. But austerity is hitting Berlin now. We've got a Conservative mayor, and they've just cut, I can't remember the actual numbers, but they've just cut millions of euros from the arts and culture budget in Berlin. So the austerity is like chasing me, I feel, across Europe.
On a positive note, what's something you want to plug or shout about that listeners should check out and put some freelance euros into your freelance pocket?
My work, right, well, my new book with Bad Betty Press, which is why I'm here in York. It's called Treasure. You can buy it from any bookshop or the Bad Betty Press website. And also, I've started trying to be entrepreneurial and doing an online course every January. I'm just about to put details of that on my Instagram. It's called Kindling Images, and I did it last year. 6 Zoom sessions, course of 6 on a Monday evening through January and February. And that's very cosy and nice. And if you want to create lots of new material at the beginning of the year, you should sign up and come.
I think we always assume the grass is always greener in big old European cities on the continent where the arts funding is a-flowing, but it's nice to know austerity's like got its claws creeping across Europe. What's that image you had when we talked about it last time?
Oh yeah, no, when Jemima was talking, it reminded me of the opening titles of Dad's Army, but instead of like the big, the British and the Nazi kind of arrows coming up against each other, it's the claw of austerity coming across to the sort of a rosy Europe. But yeah, fascinating. I didn't know that they had health insurance either in Germany, so that's really curious to hear about a different healthcare system that is, I assume, public in some respects, but you also have to have health insurance. I don't know.
But it might be because she's not a German citizen. So that's
perhaps.
Why she,
it's just interesting to find out about different systems and where it works, where it doesn't work.
If you want to get in touch and contribute to the Freelance Feelings Factory,
come on now.
You can email us vandalfactorytheatre@gmail.com or get in touch on our many social media platforms. Tell us what's a good thing, what you're proud of, what you like doing in the freelance sector, but also what's not so good and what needs to change, or what advice you'd give to someone just starting out.
And we are going to make a Freelance Feelings special in the beginning of the new year. And we've got some pretty experienced top dogs who are going to be talking not just about their experience of freelancers, but who in the arts, who are the movers and shakers, who are really trying to make the arts sector run better for freelancers and different policymakers. While we're here, we should talk about someone who champions artists of all respects and is an excellent egg to work for, and that is Sarah Brigham.
Yeah, so Sarah's been a friend to Vandal Factory when me and Natalie were making theatre work in the 2010s, all those years ago. Sarah helped us with, and her staff at the Derby Theatre helped us with space and funding and scratch events and rehearsal space, so that was really appreciated. As we said earlier, Sarah was my youth theatre director back in the day, but here I went to go and see a show she directed called Welfare, which she talks about. So on with the interview. Hello, me and Natalie are sat on a Zoom call with the artistic director of Derby Theatre. It's Sarah Brigham. Hooray!
Hello.
Sarah, we go way back because you taught me back in youth theatre. You directed me on a couple of shows. And we had someone who directed Natalie as a young person on a few months ago. And so I asked them, what was Natalie like as a young person to direct? So it's only fair we just double check how solid and dependable and positive I was when I was 16, 17, 18.
Natalie, all I need to say is he is exactly the same. And that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know.
I was going to guess but a bit not more nerdy, still nerdy. A bit more shy, a bit more a little bit less self-aware.
I think I was really sincere. Everything really mattered.
Yeah.
It's still just the same then, yeah. Sarah, I know you started also but before you were in York, you started in Leeds, is that right? So we've got that connection as well, in that now, me and Henry are both based in Seacroft and Chapel FM. So I just wanted to know a little bit more about that time in your life and what were you doing bombing around in Leeds?
Yeah, so I graduated from Bretton Hall, which was part of Leeds University, but in Wakefield, the dusty highlights. So it was in the Yorkshire, what is now the Yorkshire Sculpture Park. So Leeds was the place you went for a night out. And then when I graduated, I moved there, and I started out as an actor, doing lots of different stuff, working in mainly in Leeds. I was working a lot in Seacroft, actually, in theatre education. Theatre company, blah, 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 were based in Seacroft then. I was running South Leeds Youth Theatre, which was in Holbeck, and then started working as a director and doing a bit of work with Red Ladder and what then became Freedom Studios with Madden Ionis.
And that's where your roots were started, really, in terms of your community participation, education, that kind of world. Is that where you started picking up an interest in that?
I guess so. I think actually it was when I was in youth theatre in Hull. So I went to Hull Truck Youth Theatre, and Damien Cruden, who then went on to be AD at York and is now at Annick, was my youth theatre director. And I remember him, and Hull Trutt Youth Theatre was free to attend, so it was totally open access. And I didn't really go, my family weren't theatre goers or anything like that. But I remember him saying, you can stand in this room and tell these four walls what you think, or you can stand on a stage and make a difference. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. So that kind of ignited my understanding. And I was very political as a young person. So I think that ignited my understanding that theatre gives you a voice in a way that you don't have, on a day-to-day basis. And then when I graduated and I started doing work with people like the Blars and Proper Job and Red Ladder, and starting to see how theatre doesn't have to be in a proscenium arch, theatre and done in a certain way, that it can mean different things. That kind of, that started to propel me really. And then working with South Leeds Youth Theatre was really transformational, because that again was a free access. It was funded by the Youth Service, and it was for anyone aged 13 to 21. And we had young mums in there. It was a real cross section of kind of Holbeck Beeston, that area of South Leeds. And I just saw the impact that it made, and felt the impact that it made. And I guess felt for myself as well, as a kind of working class girl from Hull, that what theatre has given me. And so, just thinking about it in that sense, really, that's how, I think that's what ignited my belief in community, I suppose.
Well, a few weeks ago, Sarah, I went to see a show that was all about community at your lovely Derby Theatre, called Welfare. And we wanted to use that as a starting point to talk about community theatre when actually you do have a big old building, and what that means to tell people's stories. So I don't know if you could just give us a summary of Welfare, the show.
Yeah, we're not flogging tickets anymore. This is just for your delight to hear about it. Yeah, so what Welfare is about is it's about the Derbyshire Miners Holiday Camp, which was, it began as a convalescent home and then became the holiday camp in 1939. That was built on the back of the convalescent home. It was the first time that miners were given paid holiday. It was kind of done on a kind of a Butlins blueprint, and became the blueprint for other holiday homes across the country. And miners were given the opportunity to go there for a week, paid holiday, which was the first time, provided by their workplace, bed, board, and entertainment. And it existed up until really the early 90s, when with the demise of the coal mining industry, it went to. And so that's what it was about. And we kind of spanned the whole 100 years of its history, and took that concept of, that was an act of welfare, right? It was an act of welfare from the bosses of the NUM at that time to their people. And then we looked at how welfare then went through the DNA and the veins of both that camp and those working class people who attended there. So to give you an example, in 1956, during the Hungarian uprising, the miners gave the camp over to refugees from Hungary. They said, actually, we won't have a holiday. We'll open this up to refugees who've come over from Hungary. In 1953, when the North Sea floods hit the whole of the Northeast again, the miners gave up their holiday camp and said, actually, let's make this a refuge for those people who are without houses. So we kind of took it as an opportunity to look at this idea of welfare, and what does that mean throughout the ages, and what does that mean now? And again, it's one of those things where, going back to what we were just talking about, is like, so now I'm sat in a building that is a traditional theatre. It's a regional theatre. It seats 535. But how do you give that stage over to a community so that they can tell the stories that they're interested in? So it came about by, we're working with a local writer called Abby Zacharian. So Abby is from Derby, but she's mixed Armenian British heritage, Armenian Derby heritage, to be more specific. And so she was also interested in talking about what does that mean, and how does, because quite often the story that we get from the working class is a very slim story of a white working class story. So she was interested in that multicultural story as well. And then the community who were talking to me wanted to talk about that camp. There's 2 Facebook pages that are dedicated to it. when I sit and talk to our community groups, it'd often come up as a subject. So we began by taking, we did a call out, and we asked for postcards from across the city just to give us their memories of the place. That's the first thing we did. Then we put on a bus trip to Skegness. So it's the camp is in Skegness, it's not in Derby. So we put on a bus trip to Skegness, and we filled it full of ex-miners and all their families, and we all got on a bus and we went to Skegness, and we went to Maison Fou, who kind of creatively facilitated the day, and we played bingo on the way there and on the way back. And we commissioned another writer called Andy Barrett to go around welfares, as in miners' welfares, pubs around Derbyshire, to hear their stories. And he wrote an additional 4 plays that sat alongside the main stage production, which we put on, which were digital plays for people who couldn't leave the house. And then we worked with We Live Here, James Varney and We Live Here, and they're all about creating so they do a lot of work with like housing associations and archives of working class history and working class archives, and they created a kind of a program of people's stories. And then Abby took all of that material and shaped the play that you saw, Henry. And then that play had 10 professional actors in it, but it also had a brass band, local brass band in it of 30 players, and then a community company of 25. And that community company were a lot of people who had never stepped on the stage before. So if I think of the people, there was Phil, who was a fitter at Rolls-Royce, never stepped on the stage before. Why he decided to get involved, I don't know, but he did. There was people who had been to the camp as kids, and so they got involved because they were interested for that reason. There was a whole kind of range of stuff. And I suppose the way that I see it now is like, I imagine the theatre and I think, how many doors can you open other than the front door? Like, where can you sneak in another door? Do you know what I mean? Or another window that people might come through. And I just want our building to be a building full of doors and windows where people go, oh, that's interesting. I might bob my head in for that. I'm not really into seeing the play, but actually I'll tell you a story about whatever, and you can write it up in a little magazine that'll go somewhere. That sounds great. So that's kind of, I suppose welfare was a really good example of how now we try to take a building and still play true to those original things that I experienced, as you said, Nat, when I was in Leeds with Red Ladder, Proper Job, The Blars, Southleeds Youth Theatre. So that's kind of an example, really.
And the show itself, I should say, is like big fun, lots of bingo and noise and music and interaction, and it's a big laugh. But that must make you really proud, Sarah, that those communities that you were telling that story, like, were proud of it, because those Derby audiences will tell you what they think, but you went through a process there was lots of checks in place to make sure that you were listening to that story, and it was the story that needed to be told, right?
Yeah, and I think it's about removing ego from it. Like, was it the best piece of theatre I've ever directed? Probably not. Was it the piece of theatre that's touched the most people and got them talking and connected as a community? Probably yes. Do you know what I mean? And so you kind of need to judge your work on different categories and different criteria. Not to say that it was a bad piece of theatre. It was a good enough piece of work, but it was made for the people by the people, for want of a better word. And so I think it is about, I think as an artistic director of a venue, especially one that's in the regions, if that's what you want to call it, it's like, what's your purpose? Why are you here? Do you know what I mean? And who's paying your salary, actually? And it's the people of Derby. So that's the reason for being there. And sometimes you go off on an adventure and you're making a piece of great art. Sometimes you go off on an adventure and you're really touching a community story, and sometimes you're doing both, and that's possible as well. But I think that I was really proud of it for that reason. And there were people who came to see it 3 or 4 times. Like, they came back, they're like, oh yeah, I've seen it. I was like, do you know someone in the show? No, I just love it. And it's like, because they saw themselves represented, right? They just saw themselves on that stage. They heard their accent. They saw themselves. They heard their stories, and they were really interested in that. Tiana's character, Kat, is a who kind of frames the whole story, really, is a mixed race young woman who, when you go, and we see her entire family makeup, so you see the Hungarian influence, you see the Afro-Caribbean influence, do you know what I mean? You see all of these different things that make her be who she is. So with a small p, I think it was also doing some politics in a really positive way, talking about multiculturalism and the joys of it.
And also the big P's are there, Sarah, like, you know, I was singing along to the Billy Bragg song. There's a big moment of the 1984-85 miners' strike. That audience did hold that as part of their history, that trade unionism is still within their DNA.
And that was really important. I mean, I think you can't talk about the mining history within Derbyshire without touching on the 84-85 strike. And again, that was done very much in conversation and consideration with those that were involved.
I can think of a lot of buildings that talk a good talk when it comes to talking to their community, but they're talking to us a tiny minutiae of their community. And I wondered what you learnt or learning about having, as you say, many doors and connecting with people that from a huge range of, that's truly representative of your community in Derby and across Derbyshire.
Yeah, I think that's really true. And I think it's, so we're just at the moment, we're doing something at the moment called our think tank strategy, where we're trying to get people to tell us what they think about Derby Theatre, what we should be doing more of, what we should be doing less of, what we should be programming, etc. And of course, the challenge is, well, it's easy to get those people who come all the time into a room and ask them what they think. But how do you get those people who don't come all the time? And it's through that really in-depth community work and partnership working, and going to work with partners who might be contacting people or working with people who are just not, and saying, can we just have 10 minutes with your client group or with the people that you're meeting with and just have a chat with them, and then being prepared to hear some kind of hard truths. Do you know what I mean? And then one of the people who was involved in welfare said to me, I didn't even know this place existed 2 years ago. And I was like, oh, right. Oh, how long have you lived in Derby? All my life. And this was someone who was like older than me. I was like, okay, right, that's interesting. Do you know what I mean? So it just, you know, so I think yeah, there's no doubt about that. And I guess you're never going to get to every single part of the community in every single way, but I guess it is just about thinking, yeah, just seeing yourself as a public service, I think. And giving people a reason to, why do you want to go there? Like, why do I choose to go to a certain pub or restaurant or gig? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's, you know, and just thinking about it in the same way, like a poster on a wall ain't going to convince me, but if there's something very specific that's going to drag me there, then...
We talk a lot on this podcast about anger and hope, but I think hope has been a key part of this conversation. Like, I do think having a building as a space that is a hopeful, forward-thinking, progressive, inclusive space.
Yeah, and I think always remembering that you're standing on the shoulders of giants. Like, I was just talking to someone the other day, like when I was working, so I'm 47 now, when I was TIE actor when I was 21, like every single cast in theatre education was a 50-50 gender split, was culturally representative, had people with disabilities involved. That was just the way it was. And I just think that, like, I'm so incredibly privileged to be in the position I'm in. I mean, I'm amazingly privileged. So like, you've got to, you know, don't pull the ladder up behind you, right? You've got to keep it down and make it longer.
Oh, lovely. Let's make that the final note, and we'll save you. But we ask all our guests what song they'd like us to play on the Vandal Factory podcast. Have you got a song in mind?
My go-to is kind of, as Henry will know, my go-to is kind of 90s American indie, Pavement, Sonic Youth and all that kind of thing. But because you just said about being positive, the song that came to my mind actually is, now I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Patter Patter by Miriam Makeba. It's the song I listen to when I want to feel hope.
sway. And everybody starts to move as soon as Pata Pata starts to play.
So that was Pata Pata by Miriam Makeba. Miriam was a South African singer, songwriter, actress, and she was a civil rights activist, feminist, anti-apartheid activist. So as much as that song is, Sarah chose it because it gives her hope and gives her an upbeat, it puts her in an upbeat mood. She's also a really political figure. So thank you, Sarah, for sharing that.
Sarah for sharing that.
Sharification stations. The full unedited interview with Sarah will also be out as a Factory Floor Cuts special episode, so check that out for bonus content. And if there's someone you think we should be interviewing for this podcast that you think, oh, they're a good egg in the arts sector, you know, let us know. Who are you interested in? Do we talk to enough theatre people or music people, or do you want to speak to somebody sort of behind the scenes, an administrative person or a funding person?
Yeah, that's what every podcaster wants to know. Where's the administrators? That's
Get them
what
in.
People are.
Line them up.
We've been silenced for too long. The administrators. No, even the administrators, they don't exist anymore. Artists are having to do all the admin. Anyway.
Because every single song you own is a banger.
It's time for Nat's banger of the hour.
Bangers?
Is it a banger?
I would like to play my banger of the hour, which is... it was, you know, the old Spotify Unwrapped. I know we shouldn't use Spotify, and we're like very guilty, and we're very bad people for using Spotify. But it is nice to get your Unwrapped things, isn't it? At the end of the year, and you find out all your little stats. You love it, don't you?
It's a bit of admin, isn't it?
It's a bit of admin. Oh, and it kind of creeps me out. But anyway, this banger that I'm going to play is called "You" by the House Gospel Choir, and it was my most played song. And the reason it's my most played song is because I went through a tricky time over the summer, didn't I, Henry? You were there.
A tricky
time.
Remember? I was there with the soup.
You were there with the soup, which I did not eat. I spent a few nights in the old Heartbreak Hotel.
Ding, ding, check in one Natalie Quatermass for the Heartbreak Hotel.
Yes, tissues, please.
Here's a room that's cold and sad.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention it on the podcast because one of the best things I did when I was really, really, really low and struggling was... reach out and I made a list of the kind of top 10 people and or particularly women that when I have a conversation with them, they make me feel like the best version of me. And like you go and walk away feeling like you're a couple of inches taller just by having a conversation with them. And actually I'm quite lucky in my life in that I think I have quite strong one-on-one relationships with quite a few women, and we're all really busy like looking after our immediate communities and families and whatnot. Like I don't look after my family, but they do.
And your own health. Like,
yeah
your own well-being.
You're all looking after our busy lives, and years can go by that I don't see some of these friends, and yet whenever we do, it's like they've just come back from the kitchen. You know, you just pick up right where you left off.
We're all your female friends in the kitchen.
Yeah, that's where we all are, because we're all busy making cups of tea for everybody else. And anyway, so I reached out and I said, look, I'm going through a really crappy time and I just need to be reminded of the awesome people in my life, and I would just fancy a phone call or a voice note, or for those people that live more locally, like a cup of tea or a dog walk or whatever. And like, oh my God, did they come back tenfold.
The beacons were lit.
They were totally lit. The Natmobile. What's Batman's like?
The Nat signal.
The Nat signal went up and they came in a way that, firstly, it surprised me how difficult it was to do that, which is ridiculous because, you know, if I find it difficult, like God knows what other people find it like. Mrs. Feelings over here, who I have no problems talking about my feelings and being vulnerable and things like that. So why did I find it? I go into, like, when I'm in survival mode, I still go into like quite a, I'm going to go through the motions and I'm going to be a good girl and I'm going to do the things that you're supposed to do to look after yourself. Like one of our dear friends said, God, you're even doing heartbreak like really well. You're trying to get a certificate for doing heartbreak because you're like, and I've done this and I've done that and I've done this.
You want to be in the penthouse of Heartbreak Hotel. Yeah, you want them to say, we've upgraded like, your room because you're so good at this.
So
do you want to run the hotel?
Yeah,
do you want the keys?
Yeah. And then I'll welcome all the other heartbroken people into the hotel. But yeah, so it was tricky, and then it surprised me how much it helped to just have people like randomly calling each other sometimes, and just even for friends that I see like fairly regularly, just making it the norm that it's okay to just pick up the phone sometimes and give them a call, and if they're busy they won't pick up and it's fine, and just, you know, dropping them a message afterwards being like, well, I was just out on a dog walk and fancy to chat, but no worries if not. And it really, really helps. And so, especially because we are going into Christmas, I thought it could be such a difficult time for so many people in so many different ways. It is just a reminder that it is okay to tell people that you're struggling. Like, actually, it's your responsibility to tell people that you're struggling. And it isn't easy, and that's okay. And also, what something I saw online was about how you build trust in a relationship, not by helping, but by asking for help. And a few of them mentioned this, that they were like they were saying, I'm sorry this is really like terrible circumstances for you, Nat, but I'm delighted that you've asked for help. Like they were so over the moon to kind of go, oh my God, like I feel really honoured, is what people said, that you've come to me and like you've said that having a chat would make me feel so much better right now. And it feels lovely to be asked for help. And to be given a really specific way in which you can do that as well, because it can look like lots of different things, can't it, for lots of different people?
Yeah, I think you can just like say, I like the beacon, say I just need some support, but like what does that look like? And I think sometimes it's helpful to say it's a dog walk, or I don't know, it's going out to a cafe, or it's a phone call, or if you're in the realm of Henry, it's a board game evening. But like to be a bit specific helps, because then people know what they can do, rather than just a sort of general, hey, just checking in, hope you're doing okay. This is like a bonus provocation stations. This is wonderful.
You're welcome.
So we saw Gospel House Choir this summer, didn't we?
Yeah.
At Greenbelt Festival, where we were recording a live podcast episode.
Absolutely. We had such a good time at Greenbelt. And then imagine a gospel choir that with a house beat underneath it, and it was like the headline on the second night, wasn't it?
Sunday night, the big finale.
Oh, it was so good. I was in my element. And then this song was one that I was just playing on repeat, often after I'd had one of these conversations with one of the women, because I was sort of feeling a bit more stronger. And this song is about being a little bit stronger and feeling okay in yourself. So
you walk into Heartbreak Hotel and this is what's blasting in reception?
No, because Heartbreak Hotel is like you need to go and like have your heart broken. Nothing Compares to You is playing in Heartbreak Hotel, even though I now realise that isn't Sinead O'Connor and it's Bonnie Tyler, and I've made a terrible error.
No, Nothing Compares to You is
Sinead O'Connor. Or what was the other one I was singing?
I don't know, but I'll probably cut it out.
Turn around, turn around. Don't cut out that quality, especially now I've corrected myself.
Your rights, your wrongs, your trials, your glory. Don't be afraid to tell your story. Use your courage and don't be afraid. Though I know that it's hard to be brave, there is power in all that you say, 'cause you're fearfully, wonderfully made. Strength, it's always been you. Have got the fight, you know what to do. With all this love, it's all up to you. Have got this, you have got it. You have got it. It's always been you. Have got it. You know what to do. With all this love, it's all up to you. It's all for you. Have got the strength, it's all. Your trials, your glory, Don't be afraid to tell your story. Use your courage and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Though I know that it's hard to be brave. It's hard to be brave. There is power in all that you say. All that you say. 'Cause you're fearfully, wonderfully made. Fearfully, wonderfully made. I've got the strength. Always been you. I've got the fight. You know what to do. With all this life, it's all up to you. I've got it. You have got it.
You have got the strength, it's always been you. I've got the fight, you know what to do. With all this love, it's all up to you. I've got this, you have got this.
So we come to the end of this Vandal Factory podcast episode. Thank you so much for listening, folks. I have a suggestion for a new jingle, if this is okay, Natalie.
Whoa!
So I've been working with some young people in a school, and we've been recording a podcast.
Welcome to Henry's podcast for The Henry Show. Henry.
So in 2025, I'll be doing a call out for a new podcast husband. If anyone wants to talk about arts and activism and not be a dick, then that would be great. That's number one at the top of my call out is, are you a dick? If not, don't bother applying for this post. There is no pay. Must live with me. Oh, we've had a nice time. Come on, let's go home.
You can find us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, and now Blue Sky. Please subscribe, give us a 5-star review. If you want to get in touch, vandalfactorytheatre@gmail.com. And as we say, it's just us. So if you think there's someone who might enjoy this podcast, if you're in a WhatsApp group of a load of artists or activists, or you know someone interested in hip-hop or political theatre, just give this a share. We just appreciate it. Word of mouth is really special. So thank you so much, folks. We love you very much.
Bye.